We do not change the world by speaking to aggregated big data. We speak to individuals. We create impact when we reach a specific person who needs our help, who has this outcome or has this problem, who needs this outcome that we can help them get. That's how impact is had. That's how we make a difference in the world.
If you are a female Christian entrepreneur or life coach, you need a podcast. And if you have a podcast, you need a podcast coach. Finding a supportive and empowering community is key to podcaster success. Through my holistic approach as a trained life coach and my experience in the podcast industry since 2016, I want to encourage you weekly through answering your podcasting questions. I'm cheering for you, and your voice matters. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another holistic podcasting show. I am your podcast coach, Kristin Chadwick, and I have with me today Jedidiah McCampbell, and we are going to be talking about something super fun and different. And it's going to be so valuable for you as a podcaster. So first of all, welcome to the show, Jedidiah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kristin. Appreciate it.
Yes. So you guys need to know Jedidiah because he is a marketing expert. He is a brand messaging expert. He is a part of Boundaryless Marketing. And we got to talking through just a friendly conversation through a connection of another guy we both know very well, Johnny Levy. Shout out to you. And just started talking about how storytelling can be really powerful in our marketing. And I thought, shoot, man, my podcasters need to hear this because it is so, what's the word? I don't know. It's just that heart-to-heart connection with your audience. And that's what, as podcasters, we want to engage with our audience and we want to connect with them in this heart-to-heart connection and market in a way that actually is empowering them to be the hero in their own story. So yes. I would love for you to just dive right in and talk about the art of storytelling and why it's so important for podcasters and marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll just back up a little bit. I've been in marketing my whole career, but I always struggled with the results that we would get from marketing not being great, mediocre, industry average. Everyone loves it. They're all happy with it, but I wasn't happy with it because it wasn't great. And part of the reason for that is because of a very, very important missing piece. And let's just, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I think this will really resonate with your audience as well. So all of you who are working on developing your own podcasts and trying to come up with the content, this is really important for you. So let's take a moment and think about a really good book or movie that you love. Just some story that you just really resonate with and have enjoyed. Now, walk with me and see if these things are in it. So there's a main character who's got a problem, and he's struggling or she's struggling to overcome this problem. And there's a villain that they've got to beat. But these internal barriers or physical barriers or some sort of barrier that they have is preventing them from beating the villain and accomplishing the victory. So a guide comes along in the story, helps them overcome the barrier, and suddenly they achieve victory in amazing fashion. That is a great story, right? And you think of any good story, it's there.
Yes. Classic. It's a classic story. Yes.
Yeah, any good Disney movie, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's there. And there's a reason for it. It's because we as human beings live in this big, grand story of God's story. And our story is one of that as well, is one of beating the villain in our life, the devil, sin, etc., right? We've got to beat the villain. And we can't do it on our own. We're struggling with our own internal impediments as a human being. Jesus comes along, gives us that ability to beat the villain and achieve the victory in our lives. That is the story. And we all want that story. And so Christian or non-Christian, right? We identify with this idea these 5 elements that I just listed. Main character who has a problem, an internal barrier, who has a villain, who needs a guide to achieve the victory.
Yes.
Now think of a bad movie or book or story that you just did not get engaged with. You either turned it off, tuned out, put the book down, never came back to it, or wished you had shut off the movie or something, right? Because it just didn't really grab you. It felt like a waste of time. Something was missing. One of those 5 elements were missing, or many, or they were misappropriated. So sometimes the guide becomes the hero. And when the guide becomes the hero, we tune out because it doesn't resonate with us, the listener. That is what we do as businesses way too often.
Wow.
As podcasters, as businesses, we decide that we're the main character, and we tell how we have achieved victory, and forget to relate that, or better yet, tell our audience how they are the main character who achieves victory, and how we can insert ourselves and help them do that as the guide. And that's why we struggle with our marketing. That's why we struggle with attracting the audiences we want in our podcasts, because we need to identify, resonate deeply with the target audience. We need to tell their story in their language, the way they're experiencing it, their problem, the outcome they need and want and desire so deeply, and then how we can help them accomplish that. But making sure that we're putting them as the main character and discussing it from their point of view rather than ours.
Wow. That right there is such a shift of, like, even when you sit down to write a show, like, just that one tweak of, you are not the hero. And that's like, as a coach, I've went through training as a coach, shout out to Kingdom Coaching Institute, where they drill in your brain that you are not the expert. They are the expert. They are the hero. And this is the same with marketing, your business, your podcast, like, just sitting down and going back through, like, your outline and making sure that it's not pointing back to you as the hero. Yes, you're the guide, like you're saying, but it's how can you turn that story that you walked through now to their favor of, like, okay, now because I've walked through this, now you get to walk in this. So tell me how that would work. So, like, I'm thinking there's a lot of podcasters that tell their own story. Then how do they shift into, now I want to make you the hero of your story? What would be an example of that?
Yeah. Well, it really comes from the mindset of, are you there on the podcast to talk about yourself? For yourself, so you can listen to yourself talk? Or are you there to talk to your audience for their benefit so that they can walk away with something that changed their life? And when we want that as our perspective, which most of us do, and I'm sure almost everyone listening here, that's your objective, then that helps to fuel the way we present to our audience as well. And we want to come from, when we are talking about our own story, we want to relate that story to them in what they're going through. So if you are helping your audience overcome a scenario or a problem that they also are experiencing, then your story relates really, really closely to what they are experiencing and the outcomes that they want to. And so if you have overcome and gained the outcome that you are then helping your audience to overcome and gain, then great, relate that story to them. As an example, we have a client who, he's actually a financial advisor, and he helps people specifically with retiring from or in the public retirement system of Oregon, which is the second worst complicated pension system in the US. But his unique story is not that he has he's not a public employee. So he doesn't have the pension himself. He does not have the problem and has not overcome that outcome for himself. But he has done it for hundreds of other people. He became an expert, studied the system, became an expert for his clients, and has helped enough people go through that process now that he can tell their stories. And so he can say briefly, because nobody really cares about his certifications. Nobody cares about his experience, so long as they know they can get the outcome. So all he has to say is, I have helped hundreds of people retire with peace of mind through the Oregon pension system. That's about it for himself. The rest of it, he then pivots and tells them, you can retire with peace of mind. You can overcome the obstacles of this complicated, scary retirement system. And we will sit down together and I will help you map out the process to retire with peace of mind. So I'm saying all of this in short form, but that's what we helped him write. We helped him write this kind of messaging, and that's what he put on his website. That's what he used in his videos. That's what he would use in his podcast, because he wants to talk to the audience where they're at and the problem they're going through and the outcome that he helps them gain, speaking to it from their viewpoint, not from his, so much as just him being a guide, to help them get there.
Wow. That's super helpful. Even just those like very, 2-word sentences to help you fill out of like, I help blank, you can blank, we will blank, and I will help you blank.
Yes.
That is awesome. So just pause right there and think about your podcast, whatever your business is, just think about those things. And it like almost puts everything in the right order, of appropriate order, I should say, of allowing your listener to hold the responsibility of their following through their adventure and getting to the end of the good guy wins, basically at the end. Oh, so good. Oh man.
You can also think of it from another perspective, and that is 3 points that I'll run through quickly, and that is purpose. Okay. What is your purpose? And answering that question deeply for yourself. And then furthering that question into how does that purpose relate to the business that I'm doing or the podcast that I'm doing? How can my purpose align there? And then taking that down to the next point here, which is, what is the outcome I help my customers deliver? Do I help deliver to my customers? What is the outcome that they gain? And who are they? Who is the audience that is going to benefit from this podcast, and what is the outcome that they gain? And when you get really clear on that, writing that out too, that then enables you to then go talk to those people. Literally. And I'm not saying just do Google trend search to see what they're searching or anything like that. No, we're talking about really talking to these people. And I say to my clients, go old school, talk to people, really know, how do they describe the outcome they want? How do they describe the problem? Because we get our own words in our own heads. We have our own biases, our own perspectives that we bring to the table, which aren't bad, but it's not the way they talk about it. And so when we talk, we can create a barrier because of the language that we use. And if we can get past that by talking to the audience, learning their language, the way they describe it, and use their words as verbatim as possible, then we can move to the third point and tell their story, the way they tell it, where they want to hear it, where they're looking for the outcome.
Wow. Okay. Walk through like another example of that. Of like telling it where they're wanting to hear it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So once you identify the purpose and you know the outcome you can deliver and who you can do that for, you can then talk to the audience. The audience can then tell you their story. You take their words as verbatim as possible and relay that to the broader audience, right? Because you can't talk to everybody. You talk to a few core people and you relay that to the broader audience. But the where is always a big question when you're trying to grow your audience. And you can't be everywhere all at once, which is unfortunately a lot of us try to do that. It's just exhausting, burdensome, and impossible, plainly put. There's just too many platforms to be on. But when we talk to our audience, we can also ask the question, where do you look for this outcome in your life? Where do you look for the help to get you through this problem to the outcome? Are they browsing TikTok? Or are they searching on YouTube? Or are they looking through their email or direct mail? Where are they? That's the question we can answer. And, when we talk to them, and then we can put our message in those places rather than having to guess, oh, maybe I should be on this platform or that platform. We can then guess.
Yeah.
And obviously you want to make sure your podcast is out there and available where people are listening. So that's a big piece of that question. But knowing where else to advertise to grow your audience is key, and can be gleaned directly from the audience.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, when you really think about it's like that, I think I've talked about it on here on this show where like fishing in the pond that your fish are in, like you wouldn't go to the Gulf to go get an Atlantic salmon. Like
Right.
you go to the Northwest Pacific Ocean to find your salmon, I think. Yep. Yes.
Yep.
And so, yes, exactly. Like, where are your listeners? It's like, absolutely, on podcast platforms, you need to be as many places on podcast platforms for people to hear you. But when you hone in to your specific audience, so say you are speaking to college students or high school teenagers, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, like those are your places that you're going to want to go and be present and be visible and speak their language. Or if you're talking to moms that are 40 to 60, they're probably going to be hanging out on Facebook or, just like finding places where that your ideal audience is hanging out. And I think that's what you were saying is like putting in that messaging of what you're hearing them say and telling their story. Is that right?
Yes. Not from our perspective, but from theirs, really getting that perspective from them. And it's easy for us to guess at what that story is. But unless we are them exactly, we're not going to have it right. And so going to them, asking for it directly helps. We can guess at which platform they're browsing. We can guess that they're either on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. But why don't we just ask?
Yeah.
Why don't we go talk to them and ask them? So where do you look, for this kind of information and this help? And they'll tell us, and we can then tailor our marketing there to them.
Oh, so good. So
and we can do all kinds of research, but it's online and search for all kinds of infos out there, right? But it's all based on aggregated big data.
Yeah.
But it is not our audience. Aggregated big data, we do not create meaningful impact with them. We do not change the world by speaking to aggregated big data. We speak to individuals. We create impact when we reach a specific person who needs our help, who has this outcome or has this problem, who needs this outcome that we can help them get. That's how impact is had. That's how we make a difference in the world.
Wow. So good. Yes. I love that distinction because we really could Google all day long, like what's trending or even AI, the use of AI and like being like, what are the top topics that in my field we need to talk about? But until we hear from our audience, we hear the words that they're using, like that's when we get to speak into their heart and that connection, that authenticity versus the huge conglomerate of what Google is saying is what is needed. So good point. Good point.
And the opinions of the world matter little when we're not speaking to the needs of the audience. So we need to know the needs of the audience. We need to know from them how we can help them. And then we can make a difference.
So other than polling, like where do you hang out to find certain information? What other ways can you extract from your audience to hear their needs?
There's, obviously you can do surveys, right? That's one way, but surveys are structured. And so you can only get so much information from that to very specific questions. And I think that's the best way to use those. Mm-hmm. I think the better way to really understand your audience is to literally have a conversation kind of like this. You get on a Zoom call or you meet them in person for coffee or something like that, where you literally talk and you ask them, maybe plan ahead a little bit and think through your questions. Like, what is the outcome you would like to see in your life? Where would you like your life to be? What is the scenario or the problem that you're trying to overcome? And obviously, this is all related to the topic of your or the themes of your podcasts or the work that you do. But it's you're structuring your questions like that so that it's open ended. They get to say how they see it in their life. And if you want to get a recording so that you can take the transcripts and you can work through that later as well, and take some of those words as verbatim as possible as they said it, so that you can write out messaging for your podcasts and for your followers to attract more of your audience. And when we put out the right message, when we put out the message that resonates with the right people, they're attracted to that. And we're not trying to serve everybody.
Yes.
We don't want everybody. Not everybody can be served by us, and that's okay. I use the example of, think of just a simple target. It's got the rings and the center, there's the bullseye, right? And what is your objective when you throw something at the target?
You want to hit the bullseye.
Bullseye, right? I mean, we can hit the outer rings all day long, or if we target the outer rings, we're going to probably miss the target most of the time. So we're trying to hit that center bullseye.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to do with our marketing. Because when we hit that center bullseye, you just think, okay, let's go back to the dart or whatever you're throwing. When you throw that at the target, you hit that bullseye, you get the points, all the points, right? You get the best points, but it's not just points. We're talking about satisfaction, immense satisfaction. And it's not just for you, it's everyone in the room starts cheering, right? It's a big deal. You hit the bullseye.
Yeah.
And when you do that with your marketing, your messaging for your podcast, and where you place that, when you're targeting the audience, not everyone, the audience, as narrowed a niche as possible. When you meet them where they're at with the messaging that resonates with them and a podcast that hits home for them, it resonates.
Yeah.
And not only do you get the best points because you have satisfaction, but they do too, because it's like a match made in heaven. They feel helped. They feel like their life was changed and impacted in a meaningful way.
Yes. Wow.
So there's other people out on the outer rings, right? We can gain points from the outer rings if we miss the bullseye, and that's okay. So other people will come in, other people will be attracted to the message, and they're going to gain from it too. But if we don't have a focus and a target, we're going to be all over the place.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be effective in our purpose.
So good. I was just having this conversation with a good friend of mine who is really like, there's so much fear to go from the big target to just the bullseye. Like
FOMO, right? You're missing out. It's so real.
So how do you coach somebody through that when they're really struggling narrowing in and having just this little niche right in the middle?
Yes. It is so real. It's something that I struggle with. I currently struggle with it. I mean, it's not something, it's just a human nature thing. Like, well, I don't want to say no to opportunity. If I do this, then I'm saying no to all these other people. In reality, we're not saying no to all these other people. We're saying yes to these people, and we're helping them immensely. And from that, there is a ripple effect too. We start to help other people. And so we're not saying no to opportunity. We're saying yes to specific opportunity that leads to more opportunity. And we can target a niche now, be really good at helping that niche, and then we can expand that niche. We can go and target another niche later. We're not stuck here forever on this particular niche. We could put up a new dartboard and start throwing darts over here. That's okay. That's wonderful. But let's start with a niche, focus down, as specific as possible, and create some impact. And we can cross that bridge of another niche at another time. But it really isn't saying no to future opportunity. It's not saying no to other niches. It's just being specific so that you can make an impact deeply.
Cool. Yes. They're just going to have to listen to this episode because that is real encouraging. I love that it reminds me of, I did a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about how even people like Tony Robbins like started small and then he's able to get broad now. Like he's got like health and I don't even know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like most of the people that are humongous now and are wide or they have the big target now or multiple targets, they all started small. And
Yeah. You could take a lot of examples. I mean, think of Amazon. It was a bookstore.
yes.
What is it today?
Yeah.
They sell books barely, but they
Yeah.
sell everything now.
They still sell a lot of books to me.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, very good example. Absolutely. Okay. I want to like speaking of narrowing in. So as a podcaster, when I'm listening to a podcast and it is the most engaging and intriguing and I want to hear more is usually when there is a story in there. And I want to like come back to that because I know we started there and I want to come back to this. So if you had a room full of podcasters, which you are virtually
Yes.
or like
Yes.
in their ear right now, and you're teaching them how to develop an episode, how would you do that?
Start with the audience. Start interviewing the audience. Ask them their story. That is the most important piece of information that I can provide is figure out some questions. Ask them what is the outcome they need in their life around the typical, the topic or the area that you work in. And how do they describe that problem? Where do they look for that help? These are all questions that I've been referencing throughout today, but it's when we get their story in their words, we can then relay that to the bigger audience and it resonates. Because it's not us coming up with some cute marketing slogan or some, slogan to represent our podcast. We need to be able to use the words that they use in a meaningful way that reaches their hearts. And what better way than to ask them their heart, deep questions to dig in and be with them, ask the questions and find out what is in their heart.
Yeah.
What do they need? How do they need help? And how can we help?
Yeah.
That's where I would start. Really, it is the most key thing to impacting your audience and meeting them where they're at so that they can have a transformed life.
Wow. Okay. So start with asking the audience, getting to know what we've talked about, the story,
Yes.
what's their wanted outcome, how do you look for help, using their verbiage. Oh man, it's just so good. So good. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Then what?
Then you got to reach your audience, right? That's the next ball game. So you've got to get more people on the podcast. So that's where you can ask them, where would you look for this kind of information? And then you know where to start placing your message that they just gave you, by the way, on so that you can then direct them and attract them toward your podcast or your website or wherever you're putting your information out there. And it's better than just guessing and throwing at a dartboard. It's better than just doing everything. We're busy. We have families. We can't just do everything. We can't do all the marketing that you're supposed to do. We need to target that marketing where it matters most and where the audience is most looking.
Okay. So reach the audience. That's step number 2.
Reach them. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And stay true to your purpose. I think I want to just bring that back up too. Stay true to your purpose. The alignment between you and your purpose and your audience has to be true and authentic and real. And you can't help somebody that you're not equipped to help. So stay true to your purpose. Offer what you can truly help them accomplish in their life to accomplish their outcome or move toward their outcome. That is very key.
Wow. Okay. Man, any other thoughts regarding the storytelling and podcasting and
and don't forget the storytelling part. I should bring that back up to here too at the end here. Take those 5 elements of a good story. And write your messaging in that frame, and even your podcast content when you're planning your content here to your audience. Plan it from the perspective of a story. There's a main character. Okay, so we're telling the story, or we're talking to you, right? So you are the main character. The podcaster is the main character here. They have a problem, and it's internal, it's philosophical. There's lots of problems. Your problem, right? So your problem is that you're trying to grow your audience. You're trying to develop your podcast, and there's a lot of difficulties there. And one of those is reaching your audience effectively. So a guide comes along, Kristin, and she has a podcast to help you with your work. And so that's where she can then help you overcome these barriers of growing your audience and reach the victory, which for you, your victory, your outcome is having a very successful podcast, and you're reaching the world and you're having that impact. That is your story. And that's what we're a part of here today.
Brilliant. I love how you just tied that all right back in to even just this episode.
Yes. And so take this for your episode, your podcast, and bring those elements in, because we resonate with a good story. We all do. And we all know that. And when we fail to bring the good story that resonates with our audience, they tune out. Think of most marketing today. We tune out. We don't pay attention to the marketing out there because it doesn't resonate deeply with us. It doesn't tell our story. We don't see ourselves in it.
Yeah.
So we've got to see our audience in the work that we do, in the podcast and in our marketing.
Yes. Oh, so good. Oh, Jedidiah, this is like gold for podcast content creators and for their businesses too. So this has just been a double blessing, and I appreciate you explaining just the art of storytelling and weaving it into our marketing and really connecting on a human level to our audience and our brand and reaching our ideal listener and client. This has just been so great. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Glad to be on here. Tell their story with their words.
Yes.
That's my last statement. They're like, tell their story with their words.
So good. Yes. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Jedidiah.
Thank you all.
Thank you for listening, you guys. If you are wanting to start your podcast, join our next boot camp. Details in the show notes below. If you already have a podcast and you want to grow, you want to monetize, you want to join our amazing community of podcasters, then join our podcast membership, where you're going to find uplifting community, monthly group coaching with me and others, and podcast education. Details are also below in the show notes. Can't wait to see you there.